Good morning, everybody. My topic, as you know, this morning is substance over form in model tax treaties, and I shall take that to mean the OECD and the UN model tax treaties, which are in practice the two main models that countries use when negotiating their bilateral tax treaties. In other words, I'm not going to look at the United States model, the Belgian model, any of the regional models that exist, still less, of course, any of the unpublished models that countries may have. And in practice, the OECD model and the United Nations model are the ones with the commentaries attached to them. And as you'll see during the course of my remarks, it's the commentaries to the model that are actually more important in this sense than the wording of the articles themselves. But before I get going, let me just make a standard disclaimer, if I may, to say that any views I express are my own, not necessarily those of the UK Revenue and Customs Department, where I'm the head of the tax treaty team, nor are they the views of the OECD, where I'm the chairman of Working Party 1. Working Party 1 is the part of the OECD that's responsible for maintaining and developing the model tax treaty, the OECD model. And for completeness, I should say, nor are my views the views of the United Nations, where I used to be, but I'm no longer a member of the Committee of Experts on International Taxation. And in that capacity, I had a small hand in the development of the new United Nations model that was published this year. So, good. Let me set out the structure of my remarks this morning so you can see where we're going. After some introductory comments on the nature of the UN and OECD models, there are three main themes I want to look at. They are how to interpret a tax treaty, the commentary to Article 1, an inappropriate use of the tax treaties, and I see that I will be picking up some of the themes that Frederick Zimmer mentioned just now. And then I want to talk about some examples from the model on permanent establishment, Article 5, Article 9, associated enterprises, and Articles 10, 11, and 12, the passive income articles. The dominant model is the OECD model in the sense that more work has been done in developing it and the commentaries on it than is the case for the UN model. Although the models share some ancestry, the UN model, especially in its commentary, derives much of its content from the OECD model. This is not to belittle the UN model. It serves a special purpose, as is explained in its title, the Model Double Taxation Convention between developed and developing countries. But the differences between the OECD and the UN models are easy to overstate. For example, one often sees a characterization of the OECD model as a residence-based model and the UN model as a source-based model. But that's a caricature. It's important to realize, for example, that both models provide for very wide taxation in the country of source of profits that are earned there, whether that's through the form of a branch or a subsidiary. And there are differences in the permanent establishment threshold. There are no suggested withholding rates in the UN model for the passive income articles, and the rules on capital gains differ. The UN model also differs in the way that other income is taxed. But the models, as you realize when you read them, have a large amount in common. I don't want to labor the point, but I make it because when considering substance over form issues, I would want to say that there are no material differences between the two models. And when I say models, I'm talking about the commentaries on the models as well, as I mentioned earlier. It is also important to remember, and this is in a sense a trivial observation, that model treaties are, of course, just models. They do not themselves govern the taxation of cross-border income flows. That is the job of the 3,500 or so bilateral treaties which are based on the models. Those treaties are embedded into domestic law and are subject to interpretation by the courts. So there may well end up being many substance over form rules even where they are expressed in the same language.